This is CNN.
This is a CNN special presentation.
Terrorists haunt innocent victims in many countries around the world, but for years, people in the United States have felt safe. Not anymore. 2 months ago, a bomb ripped apart that illusion of isolation and security. A bomb planted deep in the heart of New York's financial district, the World Trade Center. Authorities have made arrests, but still many questions remain. How did this happen, and why? Hello, I'm Susan Rook. Tonight, in this CNN special presentation, we try to put the pieces of this complex story together. And it is complicated, with religious, political, and cultural twists. In the end, though, it is a story of human tragedy and human courage. CNN's Charles Feldman has covered the bombing and its investigation since its earliest days.
On February 26th, at precisely 12:18 on a snowy afternoon, a bomb rips through an underground parking garage beneath the hotel in the World Trade Center complex. 6 people are killed, more than 1,000 are injured, and there are millions of dollars in damages. It is, authorities conclude, the most brazen terrorist attack ever on U.S. soil. 5 men are arrested. A 6th is being sought. Most, authorities say, with ties to a radical Muslim fundamentalist sect. Investigators sift through the rubble looking for clues, while the U.S. wonders about terrorism on its home front. Questions are raised about the role, if any, a blind Egyptian cleric and his preachings may have played in the blast. There are hints of a connection to an Egyptian man already in prison in the United States for assault with a gun. It is also learned some of the suspects in the bombing had at one time been watched by the FBI. Was the World Trade Center bombing a well-organized international terrorist attack? Or perhaps the work of an ad hoc group of religious fanatics?
Hi, this is the Liberation Army. We conducted the explosion at the World Trade Center.
The New York Daily News receives a recorded phone message from the alleged bombers. The New York Times receives a letter 4 days after the bombing, also from the Liberation Army 5th Battalion.
The letter is relevant to the suspects that have been arrested and will be used in the prosecution.
Other investigative sources tell CNN that both the letter and the recording are authentic and linked to the bombing. But who or what is the Liberation Army 5th Battalion?
It's the first I had ever heard of it, and I judge from at least what I understand that it was the first anybody had heard of it.
Prosecutors believe the men in custody, along with another man still being sought, are part of the Liberation Army. And they say these men bombed the World Trade Center.
The indictment alleges that Abu Halima, Mohammed Salame, Nidal Ayad, and others, known and unknown to the grand jury, maliciously damaged and destroyed the World Trade Center by means of an explosive device, causing the death of 6 persons.
12:18 p.m. As a snow shower coated the World Trade Center, an explosion ripped through its underbelly.
I remember the cinder block wall and lockers coming at me, just from my peripheral vision. And the next thing I know, I was going with the lockers and the debris. And then the lights went out on me.
What officials later identified as a powerful bomb went off on the B2 level of a parking garage underneath the Vista Hotel, which sits between the Twin Towers.
The blast was so strong that it produced a crater 6 stories deep and about 200 feet wide. The explosion penetrated upward to the B1 level, to the Street 1 level here, where it punched a hole in the lobby of the Vista Hotel. It blasted downward another 4 levels, taking out the World Trade Center's communication system and other vital equipment.
And in the center of the hole, there was a plume of smoke going up the hole, right up through the B1 level, and the plaza had actually lifted. And the whole area had headlights on, collapsed slabs, water pouring everywhere. Our entire standpipe system, domestic water systems had broken over, and water was dumping into the hole. It was like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
As smoke was sucked into the Twin Towers elevator shafts and funneled 110 stories above the earth, more than 50,000 people scrambled to escape, over 1,000 of them sustaining injuries.
Over 450 people were sent to area hospitals. Another 170 were treated at the scene. 400 more walked into nearby hospitals on their own.
They were the lucky ones. They survived. But 4 employees of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which owns and operates the World Trade Center, did not. They were eating lunch on the other side of a concrete wall that divided them from the bomb.
That piece of steel was ripped out. The welds held. The steel was actually ripped out, bent, and sent through the mechanical office. And they got the full impact of the explosion.
A dental product salesman also died. He was parking his car near where the bomb detonated. It would be 17 days before the last victim, a food purchasing agent, was pulled from the rubble. Investigators combed the 4,000 tons of debris for clues.
That area was tremendously destroyed, obliterated. Every piece of equipment over 3 feet was ripped right out. Computer terminals, files all over the place, tremendous piles of rubble. And they went at it with spoons. Spoons. On their hands and knees with spoons going through every piece.
With surprising speed, investigators hit pay dirt.
While collecting debris from the explosion site, the explosives experts identified components of a vehicle which contained the explosive device. Among the components was a part of a car displaying a vehicle identification number.
That identification number was quickly traced to a yellow Ford Econoline van rented from a Ryder truck rental company in Jersey City, New Jersey, directly across the river from the World Trade Center.
Orchard Crisps? Where are my Harvest Crisps?
Relax, Reg. They're still here. Orchard Crisps are new.
With whole grains and the taste of real fruit baked in. Apple cinnamon.
Banana walnut.
And low fat. I'm speechless.
For once.
I love them.
Next time you wonder if this country has what it takes to compete in tough, demanding world markets, stop by one of our hometowns. No matter where you live or close by. Over 2 million people in 50 states, helping make the Boeing Company America's largest exporter.
It just opens up a whole world of opportunities.
It is a state-of-the-art way to make money today.
Introducing Investors Business Daily. It's the new voice in journalism, edited for America's business and investment community.
It's helped me make a lot of money.
Get 10 issues of Investors Business Daily, plus the audio cassette How to Make Money in Stocks, absolutely free.
It's a no-lose proposition.
It's an invaluable asset.
Call now. The cassette and the issues, a $25 value, are yours free.
How can you refuse something that's going to educate you, hopefully make you money, and you're going to give it to somebody?
You'll get business articles, graphs, and tables you won't find in the Wall Street Journal.
The paper provides information that obviously you can't get anywhere else.
It gives you a clearer direction of where the market is heading.
I recommend it to anybody who has an interest in the stock market.
Call now. Get 10 free issues and the tape, a $25 value, free.
It's the only paper that has ever made me money. Serious money.
Without the Investors Daily, people are going to have a very difficult time being successful.
On February 23rd, 3 days before the bombing, Mohammed Salameh walked into this Ryder truck rental office in Jersey City, New Jersey. He wanted to rent a van.
He said he was going to move a couple of things. He
said he needed it. He wasn't sure how long he needed it.
Federal prosecutors say Salome and others needed the van only long enough to pack it with explosives and have it parked on the B2 level of the garage beneath the World Trade Center.
Wednesday afternoon, the FBI contacts me.
By phone?
By phone.
And saying...
They introduced themselves and saying that I had rented a van. With, you know, a truck number, there's a truck number on the van, who I rented to. I got the file out, and the truck was rented to Mohammed Salome.
A Jordanian citizen with Palestinian roots in this country illegally, Salome returned to the Ryder rental office only a few hours after the explosion. He reported the van stolen and asked for his $400 cash deposit back. He was told he needed a police report of the theft. The following Monday, Salome returned, again without a police report.
He got a little like huffy or whatever you'd want to say. He got a little nasty at that time. Just wondered why he can't close this deal. Because he just wanted to close the deal and get his deposit back.
Finally, in a move that still puzzles investigators, he came back here a third time, nearly a full week after the bombing. But this time, FBI agents were waiting for him, posing as Ryder officials.
Mohammed calls. He calls me about, I don't know, 8:30 or so. And he calls me Mr. Pat. Mr. Pat. Mr. Pat, you know, this is Mohammed. Can I pick up my deposit? I said, yeah, come and get it.
When he came back to the rental agency to obtain the return of his deposit, he discussed the issues with the employee there, left, was followed by law enforcement officials, and was arrested.
He walks till, I think, right about the middle of this driveway.
Right. Thinking that it's a bus stop.
Yeah, this is the bus stop. I mean, it actually is the bus stop. This is the real bus stop. That's not.
And he stops here.
And then they just tackle him. They come out of everywhere. All the FBI agents.
A lot of cars.
Out of cars. We hear sirens. They just whisk him in the car. It took minutes, maybe. It took 2 minutes. They actually jumped on him. They tackled him. Threw him in the car and just left.
All this, CNN has learned as a hidden FBI camera roll.
Mr. Salami has told me why he rented the van. It was for a completely innocent purpose.
The truck rental agreement Salome signed led investigators to this address in Jersey City, 34 Kensington Avenue. An FBI search of that address raised further suspicions.
Among the things recovered were tools and wiring and manuals concerning antenna, circuitry, and electromagnetic devices. A police bomb technician concluded this evidence indicated the presence in this apartment of a bomb maker.
The FBI then raided this storage facility in Jersey City they say Salome had rented under an alias. There, they say, they found an array of chemicals, including nitric and sulfuric acids and urea, 3 main bomb-making materials. Also said to be in the locker, fuses, tubing, flasks, beakers, filter paper, funnels, a mortar and pestle, and stirring rods.
Investigators believe materials used in the explosion were stored at this facility.
And investigators say several eyewitnesses placed Salome at the storage facility, making repeated visits in a yellow Ryder rental van in the days before the bombing. He also made several phone calls from a payphone at the facility to the office of a young chemical engineer, the same chemical engineer whose business card he carried when he was arrested.
In the early morning hours of this morning, an arrest was made at 60 Boyden Avenue in Maplewood, New Jersey. Nadal E. Ayad, 25 years old, was arrested by the FBI without incident.
A second suspect, Nadal Ayad, a naturalized American citizen from Kuwait, was now in custody. Investigators charge Ayad was with Salome when he rented the van used in the explosion, a charge his lawyer disputes.
I don't think there are any witnesses who saw them together at the Ryder rental van.
But the man who runs the rental office told CNN Salome did come in with a friend.
And how did you know the name of his partner?
At that time, I didn't.
Through press accounts,
through press after.
And you've seen the photograph.
Photographs, yes.
And the photograph that you've now seen as Mr. Nadal Ayad is the person that you saw here.
Yes, he was with Mohammed that day.
Ayad worked at a chemical company called Allied Signal in its developmental laboratory. He holds an undergraduate degree from Rutgers University in microbiology and chemistry.
By his educational background, he has certain expertise that lends itself to this kind of a crime.
Ayad and Salome appeared to be an odd pair with little in common. One, an unemployed drifter, the other, a well-educated family man. But the two share Palestinian roots, and, say some, that's what brought them together.
Mr. Salama was a young bachelor immigrant who apparently hung out with a lot of the young single men who were in the Arab immigrant community. And he would occasionally come to the house, the Ayad house, because Ayad's mother would prepare meals for the young men who didn't have a family here. That's all quite innocent.
Ayad and Salome shared more than a Palestinian past. They also shared at least one bank account. Sources told CNN $8,000 was wired from Germany to their joint account at the National Westminster Bank in Jersey City. A source of terrorist funding? Investigators say perhaps. Defense lawyers have a different view.
I have what I believe to be credible evidence as to the nature of those transactions. Suffice it to say those transactions were completely innocent.
He had a joint bank account which never received money from any foreign source. And it was a bank account that he had for the candy business, which he set up with Mr. Salome. They had a joint account for about 2 weeks. My client was dissatisfied with the way that business was going, and he pulled out, taking his $4,000 with him.
Terrorism expert Bruce Hoffman says the banking relationship may be critical in deciphering the bombing.
It's interesting that the whole issue of the funds transferred from a foreign bank have receded into the background now of the investigation, and in my view, that should be in the forefront, because that will, I think, unravel a string that could conceivably lead to the persons or groups or even foreign governments that may have had a role in the World Trade Center attack.
Authorities investigating the bombing are divided about whether the suspects belong to a larger, well-financed group or were a group of like-minded individuals who formed an ad hoc alliance. Following the money trail, they concede, may finally answer that question.
Oh là là, oh! Bonjour, je suis le grand musique.
Je suis la jeune fille. Je suis le garçon.
Yes, that's French they're speaking. And no, these children aren't French. They're American. And they've acquired their amazing new language skills from Muzzy, the remarkable new video language program for children developed by the British Broadcasting Corporation, the world leader in language instruction, and now available to you from Early Advantage. What a thrilling gift to give your children a second language. And in today's competitive world, what a wonderful advantage in their school years and in all the years that follow. Studies prove that youngsters from preschool and up have the uncanny ability to grasp language far more quickly than we adults. With this unique BBC language course, children learn a second language with incredible ease. 4 delightful videos quickly become their favorite TV show, and Muzzy, with other captivating animated characters, along with enchanting songs and story, teaches children the same way they learned English. Words and phrases become sentences, and sentences become conversation in no time. Learning another language becomes fun. Muzzy has proven its effectiveness in thousands of homes, and now you can give the precious gift of a second language to your children. Give them that competitive edge today, an edge that could make the difference tomorrow. Muzzy is just a toll-free call away. The entire course, 4 videos, 2 audio cassettes, the activity book, and the Parent's Guide and Answer book is available in French, Spanish, Italian, or German. You'll be amazed when your children begin speaking and understanding their new language from the very first day through this unique method. So give them that extra early advantage. Isn't that exactly what they deserve?
To order, use your credit card and call the number on your screen. We'll ship and charge you just $26.62 a month for 6 months.
If not delighted, simply return within 30 days for a full refund. Call now.
Call toll-free 1-800-257-0500.
When Mohammed Salome was arrested, the paper trail led not only to Nadel Ayad, but to this Brooklyn apartment building listed on Salome's driver's license. the home of 42-year-old Ibrahim El Ghabrani. The FBI says El Ghabrani tried to obstruct the investigation, and he was arrested.
He was downstairs when some 25 heavily armed men, and he claims he didn't know whether they were police or FBI or anything else, started to barge into his apartment. And so he's tried to get up to his apartment, and there must have been some jostling along the way, but it's a pretext arrest because it's so-called elbowing, and that's what they say in the charges. This elbowing could not have amounted to very much against 25 heavily armed men.
But authorities have made it clear they suspect El Ghabrani had some link to the World Trade Center bombing.
They've tried to make him into a suspect without having any evidence with which to do so, but they've given the general impression that he is very prominent in the World Trade Center bombing alleged conspiracy.
How so? El Ghabrani is the cousin of El Sayed Nosair. Nosair was charged and then acquitted in the 1990 assassination of right-wing radical rabbi Meir Kahane. Nosair was, however, convicted on assault charges stemming from the shooting and is currently behind bars in an upstate New York maximum security prison. Of greater interest to investigators is that while in prison, at least two of the suspects in the World Trade Center bombing, Salameh and Ayad, visited with him. The New York City Police Department has now reopened its investigation of the Kahane murder with an eye toward seeing whether there is any connection to the World Trade Center bombing. Neither Mohammed Salameh nor Nadel Ayad were thought capable by investigators of plotting the actual blast. But Mahmoud Abu Halima, an Egyptian-born German citizen who fought alongside U.S.-trained Islamic rebels in Afghanistan, was. And most importantly, he could be loosely linked to Salameh and Ayad. They are all allegedly followers of Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman, the radical Muslim cleric who preaches in New Jersey. And investigators say eyewitnesses spotted Abu Halima with Salameh on the day of the bombing at a New Jersey gas station putting gas into the van believed used in the bombing. Abu Halima, though, had eluded an FBI dragnet, managing to board an international flight here at New York's Kennedy Airport, first to Saudi Arabia and then to Egypt. He was arrested by Egyptian authorities, apparently in a routine roundup of Muslim extremists. But it wasn't until March 19th when the FBI raided this apartment complex in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and talked to the brother of the 33-year-old former taxi driver, that they learned Abu Halima was in jail in Egypt. The U.S. whisked Abu Halima back to New York before most people realized he was in Cairo.
On Tuesday, shortly before noon, members of the Police Department FBI Task Force departed New York City. They touched down in Cairo about midnight. They left Cairo about 2 a.m. with Abu Halima in custody.
His attorney says Abu Halima went on a holy pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia before going to Egypt to visit his family.
He went on a religious trip to Mecca. It's called an Umrah. People do that all the time during Ramadan.
His arrest by Egyptian authorities came at his family's home near Alexandria following Muslim fundamentalist violence. His lawyer says Abu Halima was tortured while in Egyptian custody, forced into talking about the World Trade Center bombing.
By the first or the second day, they were asking him or accusing him of being involved in the World Trade Center matter. He was kept for about 10 days incommunicado. He was kept blindfolded for 10 days. He was kept naked for that whole period of time in a cold room. He was at some point suspended horizontally from a board, as he described it, like a shish kebab.
He was being well fed, have a very good place to sleep. He was not tortured, but this is the nature. He had to defend himself that he is tortured and was forced to say this information. He told us information we didn't have even an idea.
That information, Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak told CNN, was volunteered by Abu Halima and passed on to U.S. officials.
Thanks to SmartRate from the Discover card, interest charges now have a whole new bottom line. SmartRate, currently as low as 14.9%. It pays to Discover.
Huh. I wonder if we have termites.
Terminex is the leader in termite control.
Where's that number?
Our name is well known, if not always well loved. Call us. Nobody bugs bugs like Terminex.
If you suffer from the common aches and pains of arthritis, doctors know that a safe and effective way to relieve them is something you may already have in your home. Extra strength Tylenol gel caps. Tylenol helps relieve arthritis pain without irritating your stomach, the way aspirin or even ibuprofen can. What should you take for your arthritis pain? Talk to your doctor. The answer may be closer than you think. Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
Underneath every new Jimmy is the strength of a strong truck frame. An important advantage for towing, whether you're on-road or off-road. The GMC Jimmy. Drop in for a test drive.
Middle age, it's a time of crisis, depression, and loss of sex drive. Or is it? I'll separate fact from fiction and tell you how to survive midlife. Monday on Sonia Live, 1 p.m. Eastern, only on CNN.
When she said I do, she didn't expect the abuse.
I told him he wasn't gonna beat me again, and I shot him.
Battered women who killed. Is it self-defense or murder? CNN presents Till Death Do Us Part, Sunday, May 2nd.
The Middle East, a bazaar of religious and ethnic strife. In many of these lands, where political and social emotions carry the raw bruise of a century of conflict, the main struggle of Arab and Jew has been joined by a war over the identity of Islam itself. And whether the governments of the secular world will be able to coexist with the religion that is their cultural foundation. It was the vengeful hand of Islam's most radical elements that murdered the one Arab leader able to forge a fragile peace with Israel. Much of Islamic fundamentalism is driven by a generation of displaced, angry young men, the sons of a generation also displaced from their homes by the creation of the Jewish state. In this region of religious, political, and cultural clashes, most investigators believe the seeds of anger and destruction that would become the World Trade Center bombing were sown. Here in Egypt, El Gamma al-Islamiyah, the Islamic group, is guided by the preachings of Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman. Rahman preaches a jihad, or holy war, against the government of Hosni Mubarak and the secular influences of the West. In 1981, Rahman was tried and acquitted on charges he took part in the assassination of Anwar Sadat. But authorities have long insisted he incites acts of violence, including attacks such as this against a busload of tourists. And a Saudi newspaper reports that Iran, a symbol of the Islamic fundamentalist revolution, has been funneling money to Rahman and his holy war through its mission to the United Nations. Despite this report, no link has yet been made between the Sheikh, Iran, and the World Trade Center bombing.
There is no any relation between us and Iran, and there is no any money we have received from any government in the Middle East.
I think it's quite likely that there is some kind of a connection of some variety between the Iranians and Sheikh Abdul Rahman. However, that doesn't prove that the Iranians were involved in the World Trade Center.
Sheikh Rahman now lives and preaches in Jersey City, New Jersey, despite his name appearing on a State Department watch list meant to keep out possible terrorists. He is also the spiritual leader of some of the suspects in the bombing.
Whether he had a direct role or not in this attack, I think remains for the investigators to show. He certainly looks like he helped to instigate it in the sense of the kind of preaching he did.
I would like to condemn
the bombing of the World Trade Center. Islam does not condone this kind of violence.
Sheikh Rahman says he is not familiar with the suspects. In fact, he strongly denies knowing Mahmoud Abu Halima, the man investigators say was the Sheikh's driver and may be an organizer of the World Trade Center bombing.
I don't know him and I don't know where he is. And I never had a car so that he can drive it for me.
But when CNN interviewed the Sheikh last year, before the bombing, it was in the apartment of Abu Halima's younger brother. Mahmoud Abu Halima himself was present in the room at the start of the interview. One of the Sheikh's aides later conceded Rahman did not tell the truth about not knowing Abu Halima. Perhaps the most startling point to emerge thus far is the suggestion by Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak that Egypt warned the United States about a possible threat from the Sheikh's group based here in Jersey City. When pressed for details, however, the Egyptian president seemed less certain.
Could the World Trade Center bombing, do you believe, have been prevented?
Maybe. Maybe. I'm not sure of that, but maybe. We were making good cooperation with the United States in the direction of avoiding terrorism. But nobody knows or knew beforehand that there's something is going to happen to the new Trade Center.
What is known is that FBI agents traveled to Egypt as recently as 2 weeks before the bombing to discuss Egyptian concerns about possible terrorism on U.S. soil. Among the organizations discussed, the Islamic group. This revelation has caused authorities in the United States to question whether enough was done to prevent an attack.
Whether there was something given to us that we could have acted on that might have changed the shape of future events, I cannot answer that yet, but I have, since the statements that President Mubarak has made, I have ordered a review of what we knew, when we knew it, what was done, and I don't know yet what the answer to that is. 4, 5, maybe. I got a 40-year-old male with chest pain. What room do you want him in?
On the nursing care room. Here, bring him into coronary 1, quickly. Has he been awake and alert the whole
Any
time?
history?
Mr.
Any
Miller,
history?
are you all right?
No history.
Do you have any pain?
He had this pain for 2 days.
Okay, let's start an IV, D5W.
His pulse is very
Let's intubate the patient. Prepare an IV with lidocaine. Let's defibrillate the patient.
Lidocaine Bolton. Okay, move back, please.
Clear.
At Maloof, we've been concentrating on customers for 40 years. And we've grown into a whole family of dealerships where buying a car is a pleasure, not a hassle. Stop in at Maloof and you'll see what we mean. We owe our success to being the best, from our huge selection and aggressive pricing to service after the sale. Generations of car buyers have made Maloof their dealership of choice. We're the best. Let us prove it to you.
The Maloof family of dealerships, out to prove we're the best for you.
This is CNN.
As investigators follow the maze of clues and people here work to put their lives back together, the Arab American community also struggles to cope. In this half hour, we look at just how far this blast reaches. We start with a possible link between the bomb and a recorded phone message in a typed letter. Here's CNN's Charles Feldman.
At the New York Daily News, a telephone recording is received the day after the World Trade Center bombing.
Hi, this is the Liberation Army. We conducted the explosion at the World Trade Center. You will get our demand by mail. This is the Liberation Army. Okay.
3 days later, the New York Times receives a letter, also from the Liberation Army 5th Battalion. The group demands all aid to Israel be halted and that the United States not interfere in Middle Eastern affairs. With these messages, the investigation begins to focus on the possibility of an organized terrorist act, an act by a group no one's ever heard of.
and we couldn't come up with any group that's even used a name remotely similar. It's quite common for terrorist organizations to use appellations like battalion and army to give the impression of strength and size and power far removed from reality.
But just what is reality? There are differing expert opinions.
It certainly looked like an amateurish attack to me in the way it was organized and carried out, and in the efforts by the perpetrators to cover their tracks afterwards. It was not a professional operation.
Well, I think it's wrong to look at them as amateurs, because as amateurish as the act may be, at the same time they still were able to kill 6 persons, injure 1,000 others, and then cause untold millions of dollars in damage and destruction and lost revenue.
Terrorism experts speculate on whether or not the U.S. should be more on guard against terrorist attacks at home.
With this attack, a watershed has been crossed, and that, again, terrorists know that it's possible to operate in this country, but more importantly, they see the tremendous amount of publicity that you can get from these types of operation, and that may send a powerful message to terrorists elsewhere.
The United States has repeatedly been the target of terrorists within its borders, most unsuccessful. In 1988, a Japanese Red Army terrorist was arrested on the New Jersey Turnpike, headed for New York with a bomb. The attempted attack, it was said, was commissioned by Libya. In 1987, 3 Canadians of Lebanese descent were arrested shortly after crossing the Canadian-U.S. border, also said to be headed to New York to carry out a bombing. Several months ago, a Pakistani man, said to be unhappy with the treatment of Muslims in Bosnia, shot and killed 2 CIA employees and wounded others. Then he fled the country. And most recently, 4 alleged members of the Abu Nadal terrorist organization were arrested in St. Louis, Missouri. Terrorism experts see a troubling trend.
For the St. Louis group and the World Trade Center group, what we see is more of an ad hoc part-time terrorist. Groups that come together at a certain time, at a certain place, motivated by a particular cause, but not full-time terrorists. And this makes them far more dangerous because they're far more difficult to track.
Some say the United States may have brought this new threat on itself. In the 1980s, the United States strongly supported the rebel movement seeking to overthrow the Soviet-backed regime in Afghanistan, overtly in public statements and covertly in public monies for training.
One of the problems with those kinds of operations always is that you're teaching techniques which can be turned back on you, because you're teaching people how to make bombs, how to conduct ambushes, and so on.
It's going to come back and bite you sooner or later. And even if we can't make a direct link between the people who bombed the World Trade Center and actual United States support, sooner or later is going to surface in a very deleterious way, either here or somewhere else.
Got well over a 5th alarm. It's probably closer to like an 8th or a 9th alarm now. Getting companies in. We got people on the upper floors. We got smoke conditions up there. We're trying to get them down.
No matter what our beliefs or where we come from, chances are if we fly, we do it on an airplane made by Boeing.
What kind of health care reform does America want? We asked. And here's what America said.
The most important thing to me is the right to choose my own doctor.
Well, the #1 priority should be that everybody be insured.
I'd like to see the cost come down, because the cost is astronomical.
When it comes to health care, there should be absolutely no discrimination.
I believe everybody should have the right to choose their own doctor.
My husband and I work and still can afford a good health care plan.
My main concern would certainly be getting people who don't have health care insurance covered.
It would have to be something that would cover my pre-existing conditions, because I have a lot of them.
Absolutely. No exclusion policy would really help.
That's what America wants. Call now for a free report on the health care reform America wants. Together we can make sure you have your choice of health plans that everyone can get, that everyone can afford, and that no one can take away from you, even if you change jobs or lose your job. Call today.
Join us next week for guests like Kevin Kline, stars in the new movie Dave, Governor Mario Cuomo of New York, and former Secretary of State George Shultz, and more. All next week, Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
At the Islamic Center in Jersey City, students from kindergarten through high school are doing what Muslims have done for centuries, studying the Quran. Also here, there is a flyer asking for donations for the legal defense of some of those charged in the World Trade Center bombing. Following the bombing, there was great concern about the negative press Islam has been getting.
As someone in a position of responsibility in the school, my main concern was the feeling of the children.
I think ever since the bombing of the World Trade Center, people will point out Muslims and say, because I guess of the way the media covers us, we're all terrorists, fundamentalists, followers of some radical person. But honestly, it's just stereotyping Muslims, giving us a bad image.
The tone that I get is not one of fear at all. One of the things that I've noticed in dealing with these people is, in fact, they're fearless. They are angry, however, and they're angry at being abused, at having their families harassed.
They may say, if you don't cooperate, if you don't talk to us, we'll deport you. That's not true. Whether or not you get a visa, whether or not you get a green card, has nothing to do with whether or not you speak with the FBI.
Ron Kuby has conducted a number of sessions like this to help Arab Americans deal with FBI agents. Titi Saif operates his own pharmacy in Jersey City, about a block from the mosque where Sheikh Omar Abdelrahman often preaches. Saif has lived in this neighborhood for more than 2 decades. He is from Egypt, and he is a Muslim. But he says everyone, whether Muslim, Christian, or Jew, should be treated the same.
And if one of us, either way, did something wrong, should be punished by the law. But we should not punish his society because he or she did something wrong.
But the Arab American community feels it is being unfairly targeted, that the bombing and the arrest of Arab suspects have created a dangerous backlash.
At least some people doesn't want to go inside the Egyptian store or Arabic store now.
This coffee shop owner is one of many Arab American merchants who say business has fallen off since the bombing.
We have received many phone calls, critical, denouncing, obscene language. We have received letters which are obscene and critical.
Even in the subway, in the streets, in many incidents, it happens, bad things to them.
The Islamic people are being treated as pariahs. First of all, it's a religion which is probably not well known to Americans. It's not one of the religions that form the basis of the country. It comes from the Mideast somewhere. All sorts of vile canards about it have grown up. There's been this constant warfare in Israel between the Palestinian Arabs and the Israeli troops and so on. Everybody thinks it's a very dangerous group, and therefore they're easy to put the stigma on.
It is unfair, say Arab Americans, to label them all as terrorists. And yet they say that's just what many Americans are doing.
We disagree with what has happened, whoever did it. Arab American, Muslim American, Indian American, American American, we're against it. But we're somehow being labeled and victimized, which makes us as if we are lesser Americans.
Just flip this one over.
Ahmed Abdel Sattar feels victimized. He's from Egypt and has acted as a translator for Sheikh Rahman. For 11 years, he has lived in the United States and is now a citizen. In fact, he works for the post office.
They are targeting us just for being Muslims. And I'm saying, if this is the price to pay for being a Muslim, every Muslim is willing to pay his share. Just, to let these people know. Mm-hmm. It is just unbelievable.
Unbelievable, he says, because last September, he and some 20 other worshippers at the 2 mosques frequented by Sheikh Rahman were subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury. The grand jury was looking into the assassination of Rabbi Meir Kahane and the man imprisoned in connection with that shooting, El Sayed Nosser. But in what Sattar claims was a bait and switch, it was not a grand jury that did the questioning, but an FBI agent.
He said, well, Nusayr started everything. I said, well, Nusayr was innocent. And Nusayr, was found not guilty. And he just looked at me and he said, let me tell you something, don't play smart. He says, we got John Gotti, after he was tried 2 times, and he's behind bars now. And we will get Nusayr and get the sheikh.
The FBI refuses to comment, citing a judicial gag order imposed by the judge presiding over the World Trade Center case. But after Sattar told his story of alleged harassment to the New York Times, the FBI again contacted him, this time to get swabbings from his hand, apparently looking for traces of chemicals that could connect him to the bombing.
He just sprayed my hand with this water, I guess, and they had a piece of cottons, cleaned my hand. They got Q-tips under my my fingernails, and I told them, I said, I don't understand what you're doing. I said, if this has to do with the bombing, I said the bombing was 2 months ago, and I am a Muslim. I pray 5 times a day, and I wash my hand and my face, to pray 5 times a day. So I washed almost 300 or 400 times already. I said, well, what are you doing here now? This is just a plain harassment.
The tragedy of a case like this is whenever there's a disaster in this country, the FBI is usually given a 2 or 3 month license to go around and violate people's constitutional rights. The public says, I don't care about these people's rights. I want to see some action. I want to see the perpetrators brought to justice.
Normally liberal Congressman Charles Schumer takes a conservative position, saying the United States needs to keep watch on those who come into this country with possible dangerous motives, and it must tighten up its policy on illegal immigration.
I think you can do a lot more to watch them and to prevent bad actions from happening here ahead of time without crossing the line in terms of the fundamental rights of American citizens and of people who are here in general.
Schumer has held a hearing on the World Trade Center explosion. He says once the FBI wraps up its investigation of the case, he plans to look into how the FBI uses its intelligence information about possible terrorist cells operating within the United States.
While our government agencies had an awareness of this, I think what we will end up saying in hindsight is the alarm bells didn't go off that these organizations would actually do something in the United States.
Business travelers are on the move. Going places, closing deals, making it happen. And so is Marriott. Now you can save up to 30% off our regular corporate rates. Just purchase your room 7, 14, or 21 days in advance. Jump in.
Hi, I'm Bill Marriott. We make it happen for you.
To save up to 30%, call 1-800-228-9290.
He was an ordinary guy.
Your government needs your help.
Really? Who just happened to look like the president.
Just get rid of the grin. You look like a schmuck.
Now he has a great job.
You gotta help me cut the budget a little.
If I ran my business this way, I'd be out of business.
A great house.
Do I need to dial 9?
And a great wife.
Turn around. Will you please turn around?
The first surefire summer comedy sensation. Dave, rated PG-13. Sneak preview Saturday, May 1st.
Our efforts in space exploration have been in their infancy, but we're growing and we're learning. And right now, we're about to graduate. We're ready to learn more in the next 5 years than we have in the past 30. All we need to do is take the next step. And the next step is called Space Station.
The NBA playoffs on TNT. Over 30 games, bonus games, interviews, the experts.
Nobody plays the playoffs like TNT.
Nobody. The playoffs begin Thursday on TNT.
For each clue investigators have uncovered, providing an answer to a small part of the World Trade Center bombing puzzle, much more remains in question. For example, where is Rumzi Ahmed Youssef, the sixth suspect wanted by the FBI in connection with the bombing? He shared one of the same addresses as Mohammed Salameh. Little else is known except that he is believed to be an Iraqi national. Youssef is said to have fled the United States shortly after the bombing, and the FBI has now added his name to its 10 most wanted list. And what about Bilal al-Qaisi? He turned up unexpectedly on the FBI's doorstep when he heard they wanted to question him. Al-Qaisi also shared the same address as Salameh and Youssef. He was arrested and charged with aiding and abetting the bombing.
It seems that the FBI is trying to turn ordinary friendships into a conspiracy.
Another mystery, who is Josie Hadass? It's a name that surfaced early in the investigation, but quickly slipped into the background. When Mohammed Salameh rented that yellow Ryder van, he gave as his phone number a number listed with the phone company as belonging to Josie Hadass. Some sources say Hadass is an alias for Mohammed Salameh. Others say Hadass is a real person who may have played a crucial, although undefined, role in the bombing. Just how did the FBI come to suspect Mahmoud Abu Halima? Had they been surveilling Abu Halima and other suspects since the murder of radical Rabbi Meir Kahane in 1990?
If these people were under surveillance and we knew they were here illegally and we knew they had connection to this guy who was giving those kinds of sermons at the mosque, why didn't we have more suspicions? Why didn't we know?
And then there's the question of the Sheikh himself, whom the U.S. is trying to deport.
We have to find out how the heck he got into the country and why he was able to stay so long. This was not a man who caught us by surprise. Before he came into the country, he was on a list of known people suspected of terrorism. He comes in, slips through. Some have asked the question whether he was helped by our own country to slip through here.
Perhaps the most vexing questions as yet unanswered: who actually parked the van containing the bomb at the World Trade Center, and why? Officials have not charged any of the suspects with parking the van, apparently unable as yet to place any of them at ground zero.
One of the problems down there was just a tremendous release of energy from the explosion. A tremendous release of energy with not a single place to go because it's all closed in.
We live in a world of illusions. You see something, you think it's real. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it's not. Like counterfeit hair care products that look like Paul Mitchell or say they have the same formula, like the ones you might find in drugstores or supermarkets. Don't be fooled by their looks, because we can only guarantee they're Paul Mitchell if you get them in a salon.
Remember, what you see
isn't always what you get.
For a Paul Mitchell signature salon, call this number.
As part of the Economics program, Eckerd puts 250 items on sale each week, saving Eckerd shoppers $1.3 million each week. Economics. Suddenly, the economy is looking pretty good. As part of the Economics program, Eckerd has lowered 3,000 prescription prices, which will save Eckerd customers over $40 million a year. Economics. Suddenly, the economy is looking pretty good.
On Headline News, you get all of the latest news every 30 minutes. It's the one network with up-to-date national and world news at the top and bottom of each hour. Headline News, a whole day's news every half hour. Check cable listings for channel number.
This just into the WINS newsroom. There's been an explosion and fire at 3 World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan.
At first I thought it was a plane hit the building, like the Empire State Building in the 40s. No one knew what to do. Everybody was shocked.
Get out of the way! Get out of the way!
I felt that I was going to die. That's exactly how I felt.
Cafeteria rocked, literally. It felt like an earthquake. And we looked out the window and we saw glass flying. And
You don't believe how much smoke there was. There was so much smoke that a lot of people couldn't. I had this scarf here. I had to rip it in half and give him half to cover our mouth because we couldn't breathe.
When the lights went out in the stairwell, I got very, nervous then because I couldn't see a thing. I couldn't even see them next to me.
What? Donna?
To look down and hear someone tugging on your jacket sleeve saying, do you know this person? And it's your pregnant cousin.
A demolition expert who saw the site says there's no question it was a bomb, an explosive device rigged to blow with massive force in one direction, down.
Yeah.
There's another piece of a car.
We were in a state of shock looking at this when we first got down there. We knew it wasn't a transformer. It had to be something bigger than that. But we were on automatic. It was all instinct.
It was unbelievable that anyone survived down there. We were so shocked that anyone lived through that. Anyone who was on that level survived. It was just a miracle to me.
I managed to squeeze my hand between these lockers, and it turned out that it was a fireman there, and he picked out my hand with a flashlight.
Watch your step, watch your step.
One of the victims was my brother.
He was not out of the car yet when the explosion hit. He was still in the car. He had just parked it.
For only 6 people to die, with the amount of people that were in those buildings during that time, it was a blessing, really.
Who set the bomb in the parking garage of the World Trade Center and why? Answers may come from the trial in September, a trial likely to be one of the more complex cases ever tried in the U.S. The judge is trying to ensure a fair trial, issuing a sweeping gag order that prevents all those, even remotely involved in the case, from talking about it. In the past hour, we've tried to find some answers. The only thing certain right now, though, is what blew up in everybody's face that day was the sense that the U.S. is beyond the reach of terrorists. I'm Susan Rook. For Charles Feldman and all of us at CNN, thank you for joining us.
This has been a CNN special presentation.